So this is a prototype of the Mark II, a sort of natural progression, I guess you might say, in the Rocna stable. Taken what we've learnt and all the attributes from the original Mark I Rocna and the Vulcan, and married them into a new generation anchor that we really feel is a major step forward.
My name's Peter Smith. I'm the designer of the Rocna Anchor. I've been in the marine industry all my life as a boat putter. I left New Zealand in 1978 and spent some 30 years offshore sailing, both high and low latitudes, and over that period of time built up 200,000 plus miles of sailing experience.
Well, the original Rocna was developed, the whole concept was developed when I brought Kiwi from the UK, which is where I built the boat. We took the boat back to New Zealand over a period of 3 years. So we anchored in pretty well every environment that you could anchor a boat in. Thin coral sand in the Bahamas over top of hard pan coral, and mud and weed, all the variations that you can think of. But in those days I was actually anchoring mostly on a Delta 44. I had 2 Deltas on board, 2 CQRs, a Bruce, a Danforth style, and a very big large emergency pick, an old Admiralty pack and pick. But we just had so much trouble. We dragged anchors, deltas that were fully set. They were a metre down in the mud in the Chesapeake, and we were still dragging. We were still pulling those things through the mud. They just don't have the holding power. They don't have the right sort of shape. They're a plough. They're designed to go through the mud. Same with the CQR. Bruce, I'm not going to go there. Bruce, I've never had a successful anchorage on a Bruce. They hop, skip and jump, and as soon as you start developing any reasonable amount of pull, if they go in a reasonably secure, pull them past yield and they'll come straight out. They don't stay in. They're not what we call roll stable. Rocna's, the shape of the anchor is such that they're roll stable. So anyway, I designed and built a very agricultural version of a Rocna and did a circumnavigation of New Zealand. And that anchor worked extremely well. It was most impressive. And I then started getting people who'd seen it, they knew about it. They started asking me if I'd produce something similar for them. So I produced a few, and in the process of building those anchors, we refined the design to the point where I felt that it was pretty well ready to go for my own anchor. And the rest is really history, actually. You know, Rocna has become probably the premium anchor in the world market today. The righting moment is basically the same all the way around, very similar. Which means in actual practice that the anchor will always roll into the set position where it is now. Once it's in that position, there's a lot of tip weight on the anchor. So that tip weight, when you start to drag the anchor forward, like so, that tip is now digging into the ground and creates a lot of resistance. The resistance with the chain pulling on the shank rolls the anchor up into that position, and the anchor will then bury, will start to go down in such a way that it just keeps bearing. It basically just keeps going down at that angle until such times the resistance is such that it's equal to the force on the chain, and of course the anchor will stop at that point and the boat won't go any further. So that's the roll bar. We have the skids, which actually are a critical part of the anchor. They actually do act as a skid. They support the back of the anchor, the heel, when it's sitting in its 3-point geometry. When you pull it forward, those skids are at an angle and a shape that actually help push the back of the blade up so that it doesn't get buried. The roll bar differentiates Rocna and the concept of the design substantially from the Delta, CQR, those old generation anchors. They're notorious for not going into the set position. There's a variety of many reasons why they won't reliably always go into the position they're designed to, where they will set. So CQR is a prime example. I like to quote the figures that a CQR on average, out of 5 times it'll set twice. So in the process of trying to drop an anchor CQR design or a Delta, as I said, with the CQR type shapes, common to have to reset 3 out of 5 times, pick the anchor up, go back up, drop it and try again. With the Rocna and the roll bar and the way it works, it's just foolproof. The turning torque on the roll bar is very, very strong, and no matter what you do, no matter what position you drop the anchor on into the floor of the ocean, once you start to pull on the shank, the anchor will automatically go into a position where it's either in that position, or if it's on its back for any reason, the anchor will always roll into the set position. A lot of the powerboat market, in fact even sailboats nowadays with their prods, they will have a platypus, what I call a platypus projection, which is quite often solid with a roller set into the centre of it. So the anchor comes up through the centre of the roller, and with the roll bar it hits the platypus and it doesn't pull home correctly. Or if you've got a boat that's got prods, modern prods on fast sailboats, or boats, old-fashioned boats, or the older technology, they've got bowsprits. So the roll bar tends to be a bit of an issue with some of these boats. Very difficult initially to come up with the concept of non-roll bar anchor, but after a couple of years of experimentation and playing around with different designs, we finally we sort of cracked it, you might say, with the Vulcan. Well, you can see when the anchor is upside down in that position, again the roll palm is supporting the back of the anchor. There's quite a bit of weight on that, but it's supported by a substantial surface area. And as you can see there, I can't hold it there. It won't sit in that position. And that's without any chain on here. You stick a shackle and chain on there, and as you can see, this is moving substantially. The amount of movement for a tiny little bit of movement in the anchor is quite substantial. And the weight of the chain and a shackle at the end of that shank, this is just, it'll happen every time. The anchor will just not sit upside down like that. It'll always roll. And of course it develops momentum as it rolls. Less weight on the end of the shank, and of course it rolls over and goes into the set position. It's very, very reliable. Rolling into the set position and setting is very reliable. So it's quite a sophisticated anchor. But very, very similar principles, just uses a different way of attaining the same goal. The positive righting actions and the fact that the anchor, when it's in that position, as you start to drag it forward, you can see its 3-point geometry, the tip, the heel, and the end of the shank, and there's nothing else. So in other words, what you've got is you've got a lot of tip weight. The tip weight on this anchor is up around about 35%. So that is very important. The tip weight means that you start to drag it forward, resistance created here, because this is automatically going down. It won't slide across the bottom. It's going to start to go down, in which case the anchor will come up and keep rolling into that position. It's a set position. So we're now pulling from here, and the dynamics of the anchor is such that it'll go down sort of roughly round about at that sort of angle. So over a period of time, I've had a lot of ideas about improving the Rocna and trying to develop something that's a bit more sophisticated, and take a lot of the lessons we've learned from years and years of using Rocnas. So we came up with what now is an anchor that we call the Mk II. Technology has improved so much that we can now put things into this anchor that were more difficult in the old days when we were doing the Mk I. But one of the big breakthroughs we've made is we've been able to go away from the pipe roll bar, and we've developed a solid roll bar that is a foil, a twisted foil. And this is where we've made some really big breakthroughs and produced some advantages we haven't got with the older style anchors. So, and the foil is twisted, so even in that position we have still got a skid. So the foil is actually holding the back of the anchor up, and there's a very strong, I mean, I'm using quite a bit of pressure there to hold that. It's a very strong turning moment. So as the anchor rolls around the foil, you've got a flat surface that's holding the back of the anchor up. So there's a lot of resistance to the anchor sinking in that position. It won't bury upside down anywhere nearly as easily. And the foil is shaped in such a way that if you were to drag the anchor in that position, the foil actually lifts the back of the anchor up. It pushes it up, which is a feature that we don't, it's a new feature. You don't see, no other anchor in the market that I know will do something like that. But in that position, when the anchor is going down, you can see the foil shape. Number one, it's helping clear the mud flows and stopping choking between the roll bar and the actual shape of the blade. but it's also helping, it's actually putting a downward force, it's actually helping drive the anchor down. It's patented, we've gone to a lot of trouble to protect the design, and we feel it's a big, it's lifted. We think the Mark II Rocna is another step up in the game of new generation anchors, new generation anchoring. Really my motives, you know, I'm a sailor. My Rocna it's one of the most important bits of kit on my boat. I always say to people, your anchoring gear is the most important bit of kit on your boat. Why would you spend $10,000 on a navigation kit that's not going to save your life, and yet you're nickel and dime on the kit that is going to save your life?
The anchor provides security, provides peace of mind. And over a period of years, I just became very, very confident and secure in my anchoring. Over years of anchoring, literally thousands of sets, I have virtually never had a drag, I've never had a failure. And of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but the anchor is extremely reliable, and you certainly feel very secure sitting on it.